everybody, let's talk finally about The Batman. I don't think there is a movie that I was more excited to see for this year than The Batman. Like this is the movie that I've been waiting for, basically. Especially after last year, which last year to me was probably the worst year for movies since I want to say maybe like 2007 or something. Where like the best movie that I'd seen that year was like, I guess there was Zodiac. Zodiac was really good. But otherwise, you had like Borat or something, and that's it. There was like Zodiac and Borat, and that was it. So yeah, it's been a while since I've experienced such a bad year for movies. Like even I feel like even 2020 was better because there was like no movies, no one gave a shit because it was COVID. So and even like stuff in the Marvel universe was, in my opinion, last year was, I don't want to say subpar, but definitely average at best. So I in terms of blockbusters, 2021 for me was not a good year, really bad year. So I was really looking forward to the Batman, and usually, well, not usually, but like a lot of the time when I come out of a movie, I have a pretty good idea of how I feel about the movie. I come out of the movie and I'm like, I really like this, or I didn't like this at all, or eh. Sometimes it's just kind of eh. When I came out of this movie, which I saw a few days ago, I could have done the review earlier, but I kind of put it off because I was still thinking about it. I still am not 100% sure how I feel about it overall. I know parts that I like about the movie. I know parts that I don't like. But overall, how do I feel about this movie? And that's why I'm planning to see it again, just so I can get a clearer picture. Now now I know what happens. I can actually apply, some of my thoughts to, okay, did I really remember this correctly? Does this actually make sense or not? Now that I think about that, etc., etc. So I'm gonna see the movie again. This is just kind of an initial reaction video, if you want. It's not so much like a full-on like review. But yeah, so I'll upload that other video when the time comes. Overall, though, when I came out of the theater, I liked it. Like, my overall impression was like, I liked it, but, with a big but. And then I had a list of things that I wasn't too keen on or not sure about. And that's the not sure about parts that I want to clarify a little bit. When I was watching the movie, I really enjoyed myself. There were parts of that movie where I was really like into it, and then there were a couple of parts where I was like, "What?" But for the most part, I was really fascinated watching that movie. The worry that I have at this point is because sometimes there's a movie, I watch it in theaters, I really like it, and then I watch it again in theaters, and I'm like, "Oh shit, this does not work as well the second time," because instantly when there's a movie that you go to the theater and you're like, "Oh my god, I would totally watch this again." And then you go watch it again and you're like, yeah, this was awesome still, But, 9 times, like not 9 times out of 10, but 8 times out of 10, you do that. And then the second time around, you notice little flaws you didn't notice the first time. I didn't have that experience, for example, when I went to see movies like Minority Report. I saw that more than once, and I loved it every single time. Or movies like The Dark Knight. Even I saw The Dark Knight a few times, and there was nothing really in the movie where I was like the second or third time. I think I saw it 3 times where I was just like, oh, actually, this kind of sucks quite a bit, But anyway. So for this movie, I'm kind of worried about that, but we'll see. Maybe sometimes you like it even more because you notice more cool details, etc. So it's more rare. It's more of a rare event, but it does happen. So the Batman, there was a few things. I had some expectations, okay, from the trailers and everything I saw of the movie beforehand. I thought the movie would probably look pretty darn good. Like it seemed like it had kind of a cool look about it. Wasn't sure. I was kind of like already a little bit sold on Robert Pattinson as Batman. Like it seemed like he was kind of getting it, and he would be an interesting kind of younger Batman, to sink our teeth into. It's a vampire pun there because he's a vampire. Never mind. And I like the idea of the Riddler being the main villain. I've been waiting for a grittier take on the Riddler for a long time, ever since Christopher Nolan was kind of considering doing that. He really should have, though. He really should have cast Robin Williams as the Riddler, like a creepy Riddler. That would have been amazing. But anyway, that didn't happen. And so I was looking forward to that, and I wasn't really sure about certain aspects of it. The Penguin by Colin Farrell, I was worried about that in the fat suit. It didn't really seem like it was going to work. And I wasn't sure about a few little things, but on the whole, I thought the trailers were really cool. And I was kind of like half right. Like there's what looks cool in the trailer is cool in the movie. Okay, the film does look incredible. Like I just love the cinematography of this movie. I really like that, even though it's doing a kind of similar approach to Batman than Christopher Nolan, the film does look and feel quite different. You can tell this is not a Christopher Nolan movie, even though there's a lot of elements of the Dark Knight trilogy in there, and we'll get to that. But yeah, in terms of just the visual look and feel of the movie, I really enjoyed it. I like the kind of like quieter, slow burn, detective movie kind of thing. And I was hoping we'd get to see Batman do a lot more detective work. And we got some of that. But yeah, great looking movie. There's very superficial aspects of the movie that I really liked. I really liked the Batmobile. The Batmobile is badass. There is really just one big sequence of the Batmobile, and it really worked for me. Like, it looked awesome. I really, really enjoyed that. And there's some cool settings in the movie. There's like a club, like the Wade shot is really interesting. I like the crime scenes are really well shot as well. It really puts you in this kind of Riddler atmosphere of just kind of like, this room could probably blow up at any moment. Who knows? Like, you want to like be in that room and just look at every little thing that the Riddler has placed in there. It's got kind of it's kind of like Seven. This movie feels more like something like Seven than it does like Batman Begins, for example. And I think that works. I think that makes sense for the Riddler. And so he is the primary focus of this movie in terms of the plot itself. The Riddler is going around kind of killing officials or like people who have influence in Gotham City, like cops who are like pretty high up, the DA, other people like that, like politicians, etc. It actually starts with a politician. And it's kind of like Riddler appears to be doing this kind of like populist, kind of weird, guy online thing of just kind of riling people up against the system and the people in power, etc. And just he's kind of taking out the elites, I guess, the politicians who lie to the people, etc. Of Gotham one by one, and that's actually garnered him some form of support. Meanwhile, you've got people like Jim Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright, who is a really good pick for Gordon, and obviously Batman, who are trying to figure out these riddles that are left and try and see the big picture, which proves more difficult than Batman anticipated. And I think they do a good job kind of like making us believe that Batman, this is the first kind of real challenge, it feels like, that Batman has had. When you watch this movie, you don't really feel like Batman has taken on really anybody that big beforehand. You kind of feel like this is a younger Batman. He's still very moody, even as Bruce Wayne, and reluctant to, like, he can't sleep. He's an insomniac pretty much, like because he works so much at night that during the day he is basically a vampire in this movie as well. I'm sure the casting of Robert Pattinson is no accident. And I think that's an interesting take on Bruce Wayne, the fact that he can't sleep, and he's very kind of, he's very bitter, he's very, very cold, especially, even towards like Alfred, like he's not over his parents' death at all. And, it's not like it happened just the day before, but, it's something is this hate that's kind of been brewing in him, and but he hasn't lost his way, really. It's not like Ben Affleck Batman in Batman v Superman, where he's kind of lost his way He's just kind of really like killing motherfuckers like left and right. This is not the case here. This is kind of a slightly different approach where he just hasn't found his way yet, but he's almost there. He's basically there. He just hasn't found a way to manage his life very well, or to have a life, or to be, Bruce Wayne ever, and how to really kind of make Batman kind of a symbol of that you feel protected. If you're living in Gotham City, you want people to feel like Batman is protecting them, and the criminals need to feel like they're scared of Batman, and he's nailed that part of it. Batman does this. There's this really cool sequence at the beginning where there's a narration of Robert Pattinson talking, explaining kind of what Batman means to Gotham at this point. And it's basically, he is a symbol of the shadows, It's like the criminals are just scared of the shadows at this point. I thought that was a really, really cool, really strong sequence. And you see these criminals committing these little crimes here and there. And then they turn around and they see this shadow in like a corridor. And they're just like scared because they see the bat signal as well. And they're just like, is Batman like right behind me? Like they're just kind of like frozen in fear. And so, Batman has nailed this part down. Like the criminals are scared of him. And so when he does show up, it's a surprise. Like the criminals don't really expect it. Like they're scared that it might happen. But he picks the crimes that he goes after very carefully because there's only one guy, obviously. And I like that they addressed that as well. So the first kind of criminals that he takes on are the ones you see in the trailer, the kind of Joker-looking dudes who, like this gang who is hurting someone on the subway, and then he actually does come out of the shadows and kick some ass. And the choreography of like the fighting is really, really cool. There's a few like key scenes where Batman is just punching like criminals in the face and like just having a full-on fist fight with them, and it looks awesome. Like it looks really cool. It reminds me a little bit of like the Daredevil like season 1, of the TV show, where it's like this kind of very kind of raw, almost like one shot kind of very athletic fights. A little bit like that, but just obviously with more of a budget, right? But it looks really cool. And so this is kind of Batman trying to figure out, the other part of it. Like, not for the whole movie. This is kind of his character arc. He's got the kind of scary part of Batman down. Now he needs to kind of evolve things to the point where Gotham City doesn't treat him like shit all the time and think he's, like a villain himself. And it's this recurring dualism that we see in these Batman movies of the Batman is basically just like one of his own rogues, one of his own Batman villains, except with a kind of slight twist to it. But he's very close to kind of veering one way or the other, especially in the eyes of the people of Gotham. So that's the general kind of character arc. That's where Batman is at in this movie. And and he's got the eye makeup that Michael Keaton should have had at the end of Batman Returns when he removes his mask. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the goth look, okay? And they didn't do that last time. But finally we got it. Now, the Riddler and Batman are kind of doing this kind of cat and mouse game a little bit, where the Riddler becomes aware that Batman is involved in the case pretty heavily. Jim Gordon, kind of uses Batman to kind of try and figure out this whole thing that's happening. The rest of the police are not big fans of that. The police doesn't know what to make of Batman, and they kind of think that Jim Gordon's insane letting him so close to the evidence because he could be part of this, How do they know? But the police turns out to be in deep shit in this movie because there's corrupt cops all over the place, and to the point where people are like, what the hell is happening with the police, But Jim Gordon, of course, is like the kind of one honest cop in this whole place. And probably my favorite scene, kind of apart from the car chase, would have to be the scene where Batman is introduced to the first kind of crime scene. And he walks in, and you see all the looks of the cops just looking at him like, what the fuck is this? And then, so you got Batman walking into the crime scene, set up by the Riddler, and where he's kind of like taped the mouth and eyes and the whole face shut of this politician guy. Okay, and that's kind of his motif. It just kind of tapes people, I guess. And the Riddler wears a weird mask in this movie, but we'll get to that. So yeah, so Batman walks in with Jim Gordon, who allows him to walk into the crime scene, and then Batman doesn't really say anything. He just kind of walks around and then just kind of looks at stuff. There's a really cool moment where this lady who's like taking pictures of the crime scene, she sees the Batman is like leaning forward, looking at a kind of like blood stain or something on the ground that she didn't pick up on, and she's like, "Guess I'll take a picture of that. That must be important. If Batman's looking at it, I should probably take a picture of that." Like without saying anything, he's just kind of like giving clues to the cops to do a bit better in terms of like, picking up on stuff. And obviously, he figures out the riddle with Jim Gordon. And Batman is really cool in this scene because he really shows how clever he is, and that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, if the Riddler really wants to outsmart him. And so he's very, very quick, very sharp, and just the way he moves and everything. You can tell that Robert Pattinson has kind of captured a way of talking, a way of moving. You can see the work that Robert Pattinson has done to really create this new kind of Batman. And he's kind of nailed it in some scenes, but overall, okay, and we'll see. Maybe on the second watch, I'll be a little bit more positive about this. But even though like there's some sequences where Robert Pattinson is just really, really good as Batman, I think on the whole, I'm not really sold on that casting. Not that I was like 100% sold on Ben Affleck's casting anyway, but or even Christian Bale, to be honest with you. I think he's good overall. I'm just not entirely sold on this take, and the way he looks in the costume is a little bit. It looks cool in some shots, other shots not so much. And I think that's the kind of thing that could be easily fixed with just a better suit. Like the suit is fine, like the chest plate, everything, the cowl is really cool. I just think the mask doesn't really suit his face. And I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way, but I just feel like he's got such a weird kind of skinny, cheekbony face where you need to do the kind of you need this kind of like chunkier kind of side of the mask to give him more depth. Because right now he kind of looks like he's cosplaying here and there, and it's a bit distracting in some scenes. But overall, I think he does a good job. Like his performance is very, very good, I think. It's one of the better Robert Pattinson performances, I'm not sure about some of the performances he's done, even post-Twilight. I didn't think it was particularly good in Cosmopolis. I didn't think it was particularly good in The Lighthouse, honestly. But, at least he threw himself into these roles, full on. He was good in Tenet. He was good in other stuff as well. I think this is one of his better performances for sure. You can tell he's put a lot of work into it. And, no, he's good. He's good. It's just, does he work 100% for me as Batman? Not entirely sure, but we'll see. We'll see. Paul Dano, I think, is an awesome casting choice for the Riddler. The one thing is you don't really see his face that much in this movie. And I know that's part of the mystery that they're trying to achieve here. And it makes sense that the Riddler wears a mask in that they're trying to do this parallel with Batman, right? Where the Riddler kind of sees himself as like on the same level as Batman in terms of like just being this kind of vigilantes, etc. So it makes sense in the movie itself that the Riddler would wear a big mask like that. The mask looks stupid, okay? And the Riddler is not really the character that you would use for that, to make that parallel, It feels like they had their mindset on the Riddler, and then later on they got this idea, oh, what if he had a mask, and then, we can do a parallel with Batman with that, and it's just like, I don't know if I just don't know if the Riddler is really the right choice for this thing here that they're trying to do with the mask and stuff. It just feels like not I want to say Bane, but not really, because Bane needs to breathe in this thing. There's got to be other Batman villains, okay, who wear a mask, like the Red Hood or something. Where it would actually make sense that they wear a mask, where like when they take the mask off, it's like a reveal of some kind. But it's not like anyone, doesn't know that Paul Dano is playing the Riddler. So I'm not sure really what the reveal is. I'm not sure if it really fits the Riddler overall. I feel like the Riddler usually always kind of wears a mask, just nothing too, that covers his entire face. And Paul Dano is is so good as the Riddler. I would have liked to see more of a full-on performance by him where you see his face, etc. And I kind of feel like that's what they're building up to for like another movie. But let's be real, the Riddler is not going to be the main villain in 2 Batman movies in a row. I find that highly unlikely. But anyway, Paul Dano is good in this movie. And one thing I really love about the Batman, this movie, is the riddles. Just the riddles, the way that the Riddler kind of kills people and has these really kind of cool looking crime scenes and crazy disgusting schemes that he has. And when they figure out the riddles in this movie, you're kind of like, oh, that is very clever, So I like that part of it. I'm just not entirely sure. Well, the detective work that Batman does in this movie, I feel could have been a little bit sharper. I never really feel like he is doing detective work that much, like he's got, at the very beginning, they really set him up as this guy who's going to figure out every tiny clue, everything. He's very, very sharp. He's got all these kind of cool gadgets. Like he's got these like eye lenses where you can record like the footage that's happening and you can see through that, you can speak, etc. So he's got all the tools he needs, and he feels like he does just active detective work, like not as deeply as I thought it was going to do, from the way they introduced him at the very beginning. Like there's a sloppy, like it gets pretty sloppy in this movie, like going after pretty much, like there's like a riddle that involves kind of rats, and it seems like he's just kind of not really following. Like it seems like he and even Jim Gordon doesn't seem like he's really kind of like figuring out this. Alfred is doing more detective work than these guys are, Like Alfred is like, every time there's a new riddle, he's like, all right, I'm on it. And then he grabs the newspaper, he like tries to do his little crossword thing. Okay, he doesn't get it fully right, okay, half the time, but he's trying. He's trying. I respect that about Alfred in this movie. He's really on board with this riddle. He kind of steers, Bruce Wayne the right way here and there. And that's another kind of like weird, like little nitpick complaint I have is Andy Serkis is really good as Alfred, but we really don't get to see him much, Paul Dano, we hear him a lot, like talking, the riddles, etc. Alfred, we see him, in a few key moments, but we don't really, get to see Alfred much at all. Like he's, in terms of like flat out just like screen time, there's not much there, but in the few scenes that he's in, he does a really good job. The Penguin is actually much better than I thought it was going to be. I think that Colin Farrell is, I always thought, Colin Farrell, he's kind of like hit and miss for me. I'm not sure if I really kind of like buy some of his performances. But over time, he's done quite a few like really interesting projects. And I feel like it just dawned on me watching this movie. It's like, you know what? Colin Farrell always brings the goods in terms of like, if you need kind of a fun character in there, Colin Farrell always delivers, whether it's in Daredevil as Bullseye. Honestly, like in this movie, imagine Daredevil without, Colin Farrell's Bullseye. It would be boring and emo as hell. He is fun in that movie. Or something like what's it called? The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, or Seven Psychopaths, or In Bruges, or oh man, there's so many movies that he just kind of like The Killing of the Sacred Deer. Colin Farrell is so much fun as the Penguin in this movie. Okay, and the casting is on point in this movie for the most part. Like I'm not sold 1000% on Robert Pattinson as Batman, and I'm not sold, too much on a couple others in there, but like overall, it works for me. Zoe Kravitz is good as Catwoman. Not great, but good. Like she makes sense in the role. She's Zoe Kravitz, so she works in the catsuit. Obviously, they're kind of building up probably towards bringing her back in the later movie, maybe not the next one, but the one after, with a better suit, I think, maybe. Because the suit is kind of half done. Like, she's got this kind of like woolly mask on that kind of does like little pointy ears, but it's very rudimentary. It's like when Spider-Man, makes his first costume kind of thing. So it doesn't look fully right, but she works in the role. They kind of go a little bit deeper into what she's about. She actually has a really kind of big revelation in the movie that puts her really kind of front and center, makes her really useful to the story, and I like that. I think Catwoman has a really good amount of depth in this movie, and it doesn't really. I don't know. I think they took some liberties with the story of Catwoman, but it sort of makes sense the way they've done it here, and it kind of pays off. She's fine. She's good. I think she gives a good performance, and I think Colin Farrell is just tons of fun as the Penguin. He clearly has a great time, even though he's unrecognizable in this costume and this kind of fat suit that he's put together. He is fun. He is really fun. I was also not really expecting John Turturro to have such a big part in this movie. He actually plays Carmine Falcone who in this movie, which is not the casting I would have gone with, just thinking about it. But he works, he's kind of slimy enough to be Carmine Falcone in this movie. He does a good job. I mean, John Turturro, he's one of these reliable actors. He's maybe not your first choice when you think of, oh, I should have an actor play this role. But when he's actually in the role, you're like, John Turturro is good at acting. You know what? John Turturro is good at. Yeah, I think he works for me, and he does work in this movie. I think he did a good job. And I like, the kind of Batman movies where they kind of try to flesh out Gotham City as much as possible. So you get kind of a good look at the cops, you get a good look at the politicians. There's this lady running for mayor. You got all these politicians getting killed and stuff. You've got obviously Batman, etc., but you've got like kind of the underworld as well, with the Penguin works for Carmine Falcone. You had this kind of past about Maroni, who you don't really see in this movie, so it's kind of someone that they just talk about, which is a little bit odd. It feels like you don't want to show Maroni at all. Like, okay, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. It just felt kind of weird. Everyone's talking about this mobster that hasn't been introduced in this world yet. But I guess this is kind of aimed at people who know Batman pretty well at this point. This is really like, the Justice League movies and, Batman v Superman, etc. Those movies are really not aimed at people who know these characters that well. They're really aimed at just like people who just want to go in and just have some fun, watching a silly movie. Whereas this movie really kind of feels like, okay, let's dig into this. Let's dig into Batman a little bit. Let's dig into Gotham City. Let's spread it out. Let's see what we got, the different factors that we have here. Of course, another factor that's explored here, which is why this movie in a lot of scenes reminded me a lot of the Telltale Batman games, and I think a lot of inspiration, more than they would probably care to admit. A lot of inspiration was taken from the Telltale game, like the first one and the second one. Okay, so. Yeah, that was a little bit kind of a weird choice, but I guess it sort of worked. They do this whole thing where Batman is being shitty to Alfred. Alfred has some secrets, Bruce Wayne's family, the Waynes, have their secrets as well, a connection with Arkham. This is all part of the Children of Arkham thing that you see in the Telltale game. You even have, spoilers, I'm going to put spoilers at the beginning of this just so you don't yell at me. They even have the Joker in this movie in prison chatting to the Riddler at the end, and again, that's kind of what they do in that Telltale game, even the first one. It's like they really played the first Telltale game. Like, let's just do that. And so there's a lot of this movie is pretty derivative, okay, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. This is one of those things where I'm like, does it actually really bother me that much or not? It kind of does, but I feel like I need to see the movie again to see how much it bothers me. There's obviously the whole Telltale game thing it's pretty much all of it's in there. Although at least it did kind of the look of the Penguin in this movie is a lot better than it is in the Telltale games, which is just some skinny guy. some skinny, handsome guy. It's just like, oh yeah, that's what I think of when I think Penguin. They even do like the political thing, but they don't have like Harvey Dent in this movie at all. And by the way, can I just throw out something? There's two scenes in this movie that stood out to me as being quite bad. Just quite bad. There's one where Batman uses this, kind of jumps off a building, and he's using this kind of parachute thing where he's going to fly. That parachute thing looks like shit. And I know that was kind of the purpose that, okay, he doesn't have all his super high-tech gadgets, that he has probably later on. Maybe they're going to introduce Lucius Fox. Not sure what they're planning for that. But, yeah, that whole sequence, it looked weird. Like, not just like the thing he's got this puffy parachute thing that doesn't even like work. So that looked really bad. Like when he stands up in the rooftop and he takes this thing out, this puffy thing out. And then he's flying like at the top half of the screen, and it looks really odd. Like it just looks ridiculous. Like it doesn't look right. It just did not look right at all. That whole sequence just. What a badly shot, just not a good sequence. And then the other sequence, which is a lot worse, is where you have the Joker. And it's basically the scene at the end where the Riddler is just like, someone in a different cell is talking to him, and it's just like, you did good, don't feel too bad. And then you get this kind of semi-obscured like close-up of the Joker, and half of his face is like missing. They're doing the kind of like Richter's grin, kind of like burn into his face kind of deal. Where I think at the beginning I was like, wait, is that meant to be Two-Face? What the hell? Why does he sound like the Joker? But no, it's the Joker. And then they laugh together, and it's really cringy. Like it's very much like someone posted online like a scene from like Gotham, the TV show, like a really cringy scene from Gotham, and it was basically the same as this. Like it's like, imagine if you took a scene from like a CW show or something, or Gotham, and then you just dumped it in this kind of like Dark Knight level kind of movie. So bad. Awful. Leave the Joker alone out of this. Leave the Joker out of this. Oh my God. If you're not going to have like, Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker in this movie, just don't even touch it. Just leave it. Oh my God. Leave the Joker out of this. It would have actually been such a good opportunity to introduce different villain in that one sequence. Scarecrow would have been cool. Scarecrow would have been really cool. No. Okay, fine. Whatever. They're just not doing the, I don't know. Even Two-Face would have been cool, honestly. But yeah, really weird sequence, really bad way to kind of wrap up the whole Riddler thing. As good as Paul Dano was, that scene is unsalvageable. Just terrible scene. Terrible scene. Like I was saying, this movie is very derivative. Like this really feels like Matt Reeves is going for the Dark Knight. The whole thing about I'm going to break Gotham and then show them, show their shit back to them, show them how, polluted the system is. This is very much like the Joker, whatever the Joker's doing in The Dark Knight, crossed with what Bane was doing in Dark Knight Rises. And, this movie tries a lot of things that The Dark Knight already tried, I feel. And it comes up like, this movie does not feel like it's as sharp and as well written as The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight is a much better movie. This movie feels more on the par with Dark Knight Rises. And I don't even mean this in an insulting way, because I actually quite like The Dark Knight Rises. Like, my main problem with Dark Knight Rises is the last 5-10 minutes is dopey. It's not good. Like, the last 5-10 minutes, not great. Not great at all. Apart from that, the rest of the movie, I was kind of down with it. So it's got this kind of like, it's great, but it's almost like great. You know what I mean? Like, it's great, but it's more good than great, really. And also, like, Penguin and Catwoman, look, I love these characters, okay? I personally believe they'll never top what Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito did in Batman Returns. I just don't think I don't see it. I don't see it happening, and it's not happening in this movie. As much as I like Catwoman and Penguin in this movie, they're not on the par with those earlier interpretations. Yeah, no, Catwoman is a useful character because she's an anti-hero. So if you want to kind of have a character that is down with whatever Batman's, willing to do, but also has their own kind of thing to worry about. Catwoman is just a useful character for that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with other Batman movies. There's a few things about this movie that got a lot of praise, like the score by Michael Giacchino is very, very good. It's a good score. It's a good score, and especially like, it's not. Look, it's not the Danny Elfman, theme. Okay, it's again, it's one of those things where I just don't know if you can top that. And I personally feel like Hans Zimmer did a really good job with the music in the Dark Knight trilogy. It's still quite memorable, and not as memorable as Danny Elfman's, but still quite good. And in this movie, it's really like. It's better than what was posted before the movie was released. Before the movie was released, I listened to a few pieces of music from this movie, and I was just like, this is just those two notes over and over again. Like, dun, 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 dun. It's just like, oh my God, is this going to be the whole movie? And it's not, Catwoman has kind of a nice theme in this movie. There's a few like really nice pieces of music in there. Although the Catwoman theme is very reminiscent of Danny Elfman's theme. So I think there's a little bit of a rip-off here. But anyway, it's still too much. It's still too much. Because this is a long movie. This movie is 3 hours long. It's 3 hours long. By the time the spoilers, the big thing happens, the Riddler's plan comes together finally. I thought we were set we were finally moving into the third act, and we were going to get our third act, big action sequence. Not really. It kind of just, the movie just kind of ends at that point. And I feel like this movie, it's not like it's nothing you can cut in this movie. Like if Catwoman investigating the DA, and then the DA gets caught, and the rat stuff. I'm sure you could have trimmed the fat in there. I'm sure even like the chase sequence, as much as I love it, you could have trimmed that a little bit. I feel like you could have made some room to kind of expand that third act into kind of a nice action sequence. It needed like another action beat, this movie, because as it stands, it's very, very long. The payoff feels a little anticlimactic. It feels like there's not enough oomph to what's going on here. It's like I said, 3 hours long. Okay, just bear that in mind. And the whole time you're listening to this score for 3 hours, like dun 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 dun. As good as the score is overall, it becomes like a droning effect where you're just like, I don't want to hear those two notes ever again as long as I live. By the end of the movie, I was kind of done with this score. I'm just kind of like, wow, please stop. Because at least in a Danny Elfman, if you listen to the score for Batman Returns, for example, it's not like the same two notes the whole time. The three main characters each have their kind of theme, and then those themes kind of intertwine here and there, but then you've got completely different sequences with completely different music attached to them. It really feels like almost like a musical, like an opera is being built here. Here, not so much. Here is just mostly dun, 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 dun. And occasionally you kind of go off that a little bit, and it's nice. It's nice. Whenever it goes off that, you're like, thank fuck that we moved away from that. And then you also have this like Nirvana song that you hear it once, you're like, all right, it's just like the trailer. And then you hear it again later on, and you're like, what? Why is that back? And then you realize, wait, was that the basis for this theme? Why? So strange. Anyway, the score is okay. It's just, I got tired of it. Call me crazy. I got tired of it. I wish that the introduction of Batman, as good as it was, in this movie, it was fine. It was fine when Batman shows up out of nowhere and beats those guys up. It's cool. But it doesn't have oomph. Like, it's not like, I wanted that to smack me in the face. I wanted to be like, damn, like I don't need him to go up to someone and be like, I'm Batman, but I need something like that. I need a big, like a shot where you're like, oh fuck, this is Batman. I don't feel like I really got that. There's kind of this movie feels a little flat, like on the whole. Like it's good, it's a solid movie, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in it, from the visuals, the cast. The Riddler plot is really cool. the freaking car, dude. The amount of depth that the characters kind of have in this movie, I like that. The overall plan's interesting. Like I mean, it's a good movie overall. It's a solid movie, but it needed like parts of this. I needed parts of this movie to kind of just jump out at me and just be like, look at this, how badass this is, you know? Like, as much as you can make fun of the scene where like Christian Bale in Dark Knight, he's driving, he crashes the Batmobile, and then the wheel starts turning like, and then he's on this bike all of a sudden, and the Bat Pod is born, and then he takes on the Joker. But that sequence is unforgettable. That sequence is incredible. You know what I mean? Like, I needed more of that. I think the Batmobile sequence is close to that in this movie. Like, it's really cool. I really like him coming out of the flames, crashing into Penguin, and then just walking up to him like, you done? Like, we got you, you know? Like, that's cool and all. I needed more stuff like that. I needed more kind of just like, fuck you moment, you know? I needed some more I'm Batman moments in this. And so, like, this movie, it's got a lot of potential. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I'm not sure about in this movie could be ironed out in a sequel. I think if in the sequel, they need to really kind of like think about how do we stay kind of true to these characters? Like, which characters make sense in this movie? How best can we use them? And how do we kind of build on what we started here? And I think there's a lot of chances that it can do that. Honestly, because Batman Begins, for me, is just okay. For me, Batman Begins is a nice template. It's a nice trailer, that's a better word. It's a nice trailer for what they could do with the Batman franchise, and Dark Knight delivered on that, you know? And I think they can do that here. I think there's loads to work with in this movie, but I think if they do a second movie, which I'm sure they will because the film's doing really well, I think there's a lot to build on. And I think if they can just do that, if they can just build on those really cool ideas in this movie, you're going to end up with another Dark Knight for sure. Because this movie's close. This movie, like I said, is kind of on the par with Dark Knight Rises for me. And that's already a pretty high bar. You know, Dark Knight Rises, as much shit as it got when it came out, is far better than most Batman movies at this point. Okay, so it's still a really good movie. It's just you got used to the Dark Knight kind of level of quality, so the fact that you kind of went down a little bit, that pissed a lot of people off. But yeah, I feel like they can build on this. I don't think this is like, even if I watch the movie again, I'm like, yeah, I'm still feeling that way. Like there's some stuff that's kind of underwhelming about this movie. I'm still going to be optimistic about the next film. I'm still going to be like, you know what, this franchise can definitely, there's potential that it could get better and better, you know? If you just kind of like make sure that you give like whoever's the villain kind of more actual screen time, that you that you kind of like give Batman like a suit that makes sense and gadgets that are a little bit cooler, that match how cool that Batmobile is. Give Alfred a little bit more screen time as well. Give just kind of play tricks on you and really kind of like punch you in the face with some cool sequences, you know, throughout the movie. You know, I was fascinated for most of this movie. Okay, for like pretty much the whole movie, I had my eyes glued to the screen because I love Batman stuff. So a 3-hour long Batman movie is okay by me. Okay. Having said that, if you're going to do a 3-hour Batman film, for God's sake, you got to make it snappy. You got to give us some fuck you moments, okay? We need more of those because, you know, either that or a lot of detective work, which we didn't really get in this movie. You know, even that was kind of underwhelming to a certain extent. By the time you get to the rat riddle, Batman's basically like, fuck it, I don't know. It's just oranges? Could it be oranges? And Jim Gordon's like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? You know, it felt like at that point they were just broken. They didn't know what to do. But okay, Batman figures out some stuff later on with the Riddler's room and stuff. But it's pretty obvious the way he had everything set up at that point. And yeah, I mean, even the Riddler's endgame just seems a little bit, it doesn't seem that Riddler-y. You know what I mean? It just feels like it's kind of like a best of Dark Knight trilogy, this movie, right? Where you've got the very similar plan to Bane's plan. honestly. Cross with the Joker. It's like if Bane and the Joker got together from the Dark Knight trilogy and came up with a plan to break Gotham. This would be it. It doesn't really like the riddles are cool. The like I said, like the whole path that Batman has to follow with those riddles is really cool. I just feel like the payoff had been a little bit more. I don't want to say wacky, but I feel like it would have been cool if it had been a little bit more chaotic. Like spoilers again. The big payoff. The big end game of the Riddler is to flood Gotham City, and he does, and then the movie ends, and I'm like, okay. And now at the end, they've set it up so that wow, Gotham is really gonna be bad now. And I'm just like, now, bro, Gotham sucks ass right now. Like, like it doesn't feel like this is a weird character arc for Gotham for me. Like, this is not a really good build up. It's like, oh, Gotham City, look at this horrible town with all these horrible people. And at the end of the movie, you're like, oh, Gotham's really going to be bad now. It's just like, it's bad. Gotham's bad. This does not need to be a character. It would actually be more of a character arc if, Gotham got better at the end. Like, no joke. So the flooding thing, I don't know. It looked cool on the screen. I really like the idea of Batman becoming kind of a symbol of hope at the end. I thought that was really cool. And for that character arc, just the Gotham character arc was a little bit like, and also like, it just didn't feel very Riddlery. Like, for me, the Riddler's end game would be another question. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be just like, we flooded Gotham, the end. It would be like, another mystery. It would be like opening the door to another mystery that they would have to solve. Like something where like some of the buildings in Gotham are now could blow up at any second. And they can do the same thing that Paul Dano suffered in the Prisoners, which is a good movie. You should definitely check out Prisoners. If you like Paul Dano in this movie, check out Prisoners. Awesome movie by Denis Villeneuve. Look, they could have done that where he keeps getting tortured by the police, and then Batman comes in and he tries to get answers out of him, then not going to get answers out of him. And then he's planned something for the next movie kind of thing. I think that would have been pretty cool, actually, if the Riddler had been this kind of ongoing character, in those movies. Then you could have had the end game of the Riddler in this movie to be him blowing up a bunch of buildings and then being like, hey, you know what? There's plenty more where that came from. Like half of the buildings in this town are rigged now. And you'll never figure out which ones. Unless, question mark, or something like that. Or there's something that he's planned for later on. Which, because I think Riddler destroying the city and just kind of having, like, the whole thing about Riddler being this kind of online personality who has like 500 followers who are all devoted followers and dress up in masks as well and kind of help out the Riddler in his quest to destroy Gotham. And then you've got all these kind of very Dark Knight ripoff, shots of the Riddler filming himself really badly with a phone, just going, I am the Riddler. It's a little bit dopey. We've seen it already in The Dark Knight, and it was done better there. It was actually scary when the Joker has this cop and he's gonna kill him, etc. So that was really well done. It made sense for the Joker. Riddler, I don't think that didn't really fit for me, and that's one of the weird problems I have with this movie. Where the Riddler didn't really feel like the right character for the kind of story they were telling here. But all this to say, I will see this movie again in theaters because I liked it, okay? I liked a good portion of this movie. I would say I liked most of this movie, okay? I smiled here and there watching this movie because I thought, wow, that's really cool. There was some key moments in this movie where I was like, hell yeah, even if it was like Robert Pattinson, like I said, not sold entirely on his Batman, but it worked well enough in some scenes that I was like, yeah, Batman, you kick some ass. That's right. Batman would do this. Batman would say this, So this movie worked for me. I liked it. I have some problems with it. I think, like I said, it's not exactly The Dark Knight, but it's very much in that kind of range of movies. Like it's a strong movie. It just could have been stronger if it had just been a little bit sharper, and you just got rid of a couple of things. Probably they shouldn't have made a 3 hour long film. That was a little bit over ambitious. I think they got over ambitious in this movie, where they were like, you know what, we'll just make the fucking Dark Knight again. And it's like, well, it's not as good as the Dark Knight. Come chill. Bring back Mr. Freeze. That's what I say. No, they got a little bit in over their head, I think, with what they were trying to do here. But what they did was still really, really good. I think it's good to be ambitious anyway. So I think they at least achieved the same level as Dark Knight Rises, which is a pretty high level in my book. And yeah, so it's a good movie. You should definitely check it out. It's doing well, which I'm happy about, because I would like to see a sequel kind of fix a few little issues here and there. Yeah, really cool movie. Some really cool parts in there. Could have been better, but what movie couldn't have been better? Not that many, okay? So yeah, check it out. Enjoy yourselves. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back in front of the camera going, you know what? I saw the movie again. I was wrong about all of it. Okay, this movie kicks ass. And it does kick ass in a lot of places. It's just kind of, yeah, it didn't really reach my, my preferred level of Batman movie, which is God tier, but it's up there. It's up there. It's still a good movie. That's why it's very rare these days that I want to see a movie again in theaters happily, and I would happily see this movie again in theaters. So that tells you something. Thank you for watching. See you guys later.